Hello and welcome to this episode of the podcast. This is a podcast where we talk to business owners, entrepreneurs and founders about the tough times they've had to push through during their careers. And I've got a very special guest on this episode. This episode I'm talking to my grandfather, who has a lot of experience in business, and I thought it'd be great to talk to him and reflect on a career that spanned about 40 years and the highs and lows that went along with that, along with the timeless principles he can share with us. So before we get going, I'm going to give you a little bit of a sneak peek into one of his stories about stress.
After several years of that, I did go to a doctor and spoke to him about this, and he was trying to do an ECG, and he couldn't get it to work because apparently my body was just under total stress, and the machine mustn't work. I've got no idea about that.
Yeah, like 2 tenths almost.
Yeah, 2 tenths.
Right.
And he was trying to make me relax.
Mm-hmm.
And his advice was then, I know what's wrong with it, and I'm not going to give you anything for it, and there's certainly no pills involved, but I'll guarantee you that you're going to be dead at 55.
Wow. And what age were you at the time?
I would have been, I suppose, in my early 40s, I guess, at that stage. Yeah.
Yep.
And that was a kick in the pants for me. And
hello and welcome to the Be The Push podcast. My name is Jack Ferguson, and I'm going to be sharing with you stories of how business owners and entrepreneurs had to push through the hard times in their careers. We're going to be discussing the lessons learned from these experiences while arming you with actionable advice so you can be the push when you need it most. Show notes can be found at bethepush.com/podcast and clicking on the relevant episode link. Let's get started. So we have that story coming up amongst many others in this episode. It's amazing the stories that one can amass in 40 years of being in employed work. So naturally, Pop has a lot to share with us. He talked about a lot of the highs and a lot of the lows, including the stress and how his doctor said it almost killed him. But we also touched on timeless principles. So before the episode started, I asked Pop to prepare some of those timeless principles that he thought would be still as relevant today as they were when he started out in his career, which was really interesting for me. And I thought it would be good, but it was absolutely fantastic. So before we get into the rest of the discussion, and I don't normally do this, but on this episode, I want to give you another sneak peek just to really make sure you stick around for that last 20 minutes because it is really powerful stuff.
In my experience, having humility, you ended up with a lot of workers, or most workers, and a very vast majority of workers being very, very loyal to you. Mm-hmm. And they would do anything for you. They respected you. And you've got to earn that respect. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing better than having a boss you really respect. Mm-hmm. And I think if I could pass that on, that does come through a little bit of humility. Mm-hmm. At times you've got to be tough, but that humility means so much to your working people underneath you.
Right. And what do you, how would that look on a day-to-day basis? Like, is that just being open about your mistakes, perhaps, or is it just being respectful?
Oh, absolutely. I think I feel it was that I could talk to anybody, a labourer, a machine operator, anybody, and make him feel as though I'm no better than him, that he was equal to me.
Gotcha.
And I would ask him, whenever I could, what do you think about what I'm doing? Mm-hmm. What do you think? And I want you to tell me honestly. What do you think? We've got a bit of a problem here. Mm-hmm. What would you do? You know, and it's probably one of the other principles is that I don't care how many years you've been doing it. You can never, ever stop learning from the people, even those who work for you.
Yep.
And I think it's very, very important that if you remember that, there's nobody knows everything. Mm-hmm. And there's an odd bloke who's been a labourer all his life. Mm-hmm. He would know a little bit better about some things than you do because he's down at the work face. He's at the coal face this week. Yep. So that's a good one. I think
Did you have to learn to do that, or with the humility part? Did you have to learn that, or is that who you were?
No, absolutely had to learn it.
Oh wow, okay.
Yes.
So did you get stung by not being like that, perhaps?
Yes,
Okay.
I was accused through my life of being a bit snobbish.
Okay.
And one of the things is that's probably very, very hard to learn and get good at is communication.
Mm-hmm.
And I was certainly at fault early on.
Mm-hmm.
I would give 4 or 5 men some instruction,
Yep.
thinking it's as clear as I could make it.
Yeah.
But to them, it wasn't.
Okay.
And you've got to remember your brain is seeing it from your experience, and you've seen it a dozen times before.
Mm-hmm.
This might be something a man or these particular gang of men have never done before.
Mm.
And that was most important. And I was certainly at fault over many years on that I thought that I'd given the instructions clearly.
Right.
And obviously, a couple of days later, I hadn't.
Mm-hmm.
And for a while there, I was blaming the men a bit. So,
Right.
so yes, I would have had a problem over my life. Yeah,
Okay.
definitely, yeah.
Right. So that was just another little teaser, but I won't delay you any longer. Let's go from the start. Here we go. All right, so today we're here with Graham Ferguson, and Graham is also my grandpa, or Pop. Pop, how are you going today?
Very well, thank you, Jack.
That's good to hear. So I wanted to get you on the podcast because I thought it'd be great to reflect on a career in engineering for the most part. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
In civil engineering.
Civil engineering, and also talk about some of the challenges you had over the years, how you got through them. We'll also talk about some of the good times, and I'm hoping we can talk about some of the timeless principles that you learned during your career as well.
That'll be fine, mate.
All right, so let's start with how did your career start? Like, what was the first job you had?
Well, it was interesting that when I was at school, I would not have known what a civil engineer was, and I got to leaving, which is year 11 in modern terms, and my parents decided they did not have enough money to send me to university, even though the headmaster pulled us all in and had a great talk about that I must go to university. So a job came up at the Shire of Swan Hill, which was called a cadet engineer. And it's a branch of engineering, civil engineering, which is called municipal engineering. And again, I had no idea what a municipal engineer was. It was a little bit traumatic for me because I was looking forward to continuing schooling through year matriculation, it used to be then, instead of ECE. So I took this, and at that stage I was only actually 16, and I turned 17 in the year that I started work. And we were living on a farm some 18 kilometres out of Swan Hill. So I had to buy a little motorbike, and having no licence, I had to go along the back streets to get into work every day and get home, hoping not to get caught by the police for driving unlicensed.
Did you get caught?
No, I got through that year and got my licence when I turned 18, because you couldn't get it till 18 when you're in Victoria.
Right. And so just for the listeners, Swan Hill's a small town in Victoria.
That's correct, yes. About 200 kilometres from Mildura, between Mildura and Echuca.
Yep.
On the Murray River.
Yep.
So that's how it all started. As a kid, walked into something that I had no idea about. As it turned out, it was very, very interesting, and you immediately start with practical work and very, very quickly get into becoming a very competent surveyor, designer, and drawing plans ready for submission to, in those days, the CRB, or Country Roads Board, for approval, and they give you the money, and then you go and construct the roads, etc., etc.
Yep.
But this was only a part of civil engineering. I don't know whether listeners have any idea what a civil engineer is.
Let us know.
Well, civil engineering is all about, let's say, we are into survey, design and construction of roadworks from the backcountry road right through to freeways, building work from, say, the basic backyard shed right through to multi-storey development in the cities of commercial and residential towers, as they are known now. We have bridges, tunnels, dams, sewage reticulation, water reticulation. There's also drainage. A large proportion of what we do is drainage work and also irrigation for the country areas. So in a way, there would be not many things that the normal person would do or have something to do with in any one given day that has not had something to do with a civil engineer. So they're very important to everyday living.
It sounds very much like they are. So you're saying when you went to go to, you had to start work because your parents couldn't afford to send you to uni. Did you actually, you saying you actually wanted to go to uni?
I did.
Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
yes. So I was disappointed I left school. I think I was enjoying it at year 11. And I was looking forward to year 12, which was matriculation.
Yep.
And I was handling school quite easily, so it was a bit of a disappointment.
Yep.
And I think it came very, very quickly. It was my problem that all of a sudden I was a school kid who was out in the workplace. And I think I got a measly wage of, I think it was something like £2.07. So that's about $5.50 a week.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that's how it all started. And in those days, you got paid on your age, and I was only 16 and right through to 17.
Yep.
Never got a full adult wage until you turned 21.
Okay, yep.
So from there, I spent 5 years with the Shire of Swan Hill, but the big disadvantage was that, of course, I had no qualification.
Oh, right. And why was that a disadvantage?
Well, I had to do it by correspondence.
Yep.
I started off, and there was a couple of surveying subjects and structural engineering, this sort of thing that I tried to do. And being on the farm, it was pretty tough going. So after 5 years, I actually got married, but we decided I'll have to move, and I had to go to Melbourne, which was the nearest big city to go to put myself through college, which in those days it was called the Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology,
Yep.
which offered a diploma in civil engineering.
Mm-hmm.
So I went there. We moved to Melbourne. I then got a job with another municipality, which is called the Shire of Keilor.
Okay.
And that goes back a long, long way.
Right.
So the reason we went to Melbourne was that for me to get my qualifications in the main.
I suppose I'm wondering why that qualification was so important that you felt you had to move to get there.
Well, the end job in a municipality was city engineer or shire engineer.
Okay.
You could, in those early days, go through a process to get that certificate, but you still needed to have that background that you would need a diploma in civil engineering or something like that. And then all you have to do after that is powers and duties, which is all about legislation and that type of thing.
Okay. And you couldn't get a job if you didn't have that diploma?
No, well, you get the job like I had, and that is always second in charge or fourth in charge.
Yep. And you wouldn't lead?
I don't know that I did at that stage. I was probably a little bit shy, I guess. I'm still a bit shy, Jay.
For the listeners, that's not true. Yeah.
But anyway, it turned out to be a very, very interesting job because for the first time I'd run into the Shire engineer of Keilor was rather a hard man to get on with.
Right.
So I quickly learnt about not everybody's nice and easy to get on with. And,
right.
And it was a good learning curve.
Yep. And is that the first time you come across that?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
The country people are a little bit different to the city people.
Right.
And, I found that out very quickly, very early.
Yep.
But it turned out to be probably one of the great moves in my life, apart from being very, very hard to get through everything. But the Shire of Keilor was turning slowly to become the city of Keilor.
Mm-hmm.
And the development throughout that whole area was absolutely phenomenal at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So there you can see me sitting there with no qualifications. There was a huge requirement. We built 3 more drawing offices, as we called them, Keilor, and we needed another 15 engineers. So with my experience, I was then put in charge of one of those offices.
Mm-hmm.
We had to try and get through, I think it was £1 million worth of work per year for 10 years to bring the backlog of all the civil works that had to be done in the Shire at that stage up to scratch. And it changed from when you developed in those early days, you're allowed to put down an old gravel road. Mm-hmm. And you've got a subdivision, and that's all it was. So here we were with miles and miles of gravel roads, all houses built, and which then, of course, as you know, quickly changed to when you develop a block of land, you had to have full street construction, total sewage, total water, total gas, everything all made before anybody was allowed to build, which was a great move anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So it was interesting. We had to put on about 15 new engineers, and we had quite a turnover in those days.
Mm-hmm. But
most of them were graduates from university, and I had rather a difficult job, Jack. You wouldn't believe that teaching these people almost from scratch,
right?
Even with a degree or masters in civil engineering, their practical knowledge was zilch, and it was a bit tough. And on top of that, the 2 guys who were put in the other 2 drawing offices, and they became grade 2 engineers on the spot, whereas I stayed as a grade 1.
Right.
They kept coming to me every day for advice. So we got through those years, and it was rather interesting, but amazing how my background in practical work and my practical knowledge meant so much more than all the qualifications you could have.
Right. And had you done your qualification at that stage? You hadn't, I'm guessing, right.
I was going to school about 3 nights a week.
Yep.
That was after work.
Mm-hmm.
They were pretty tough times. In the 3 nights to school, I still did want to play Aussie Rules football, so I had to fit in a couple of nights training and playing in the VFA, which is the association in those days. It was only on Sunday. So my week was full, and I must hand it to my wife, who practically brought up the 3 children by herself.
Right.
There was times there, I think on a Sunday, I'd see the kids for the first time for the week.
Right, yeah.
They wouldn't know who I was.
Wow.
Anyway, they were tough times, but I guess there's one good thing I did learn in those days. It was hard work and stressful and long hours. Mm-hmm. But I believe the fitness that I maintained through playing football meant so much in the long run.
Okay, wow.
So that was a very, very interesting stage of my life, and then I was enticed out of that job into the private field, into private enterprise. Mm-hmm. In that stage, one of my friends who decided that I should change from the government or semi-government job into a private enterprise, and he must have seen something in me. I don't know what that was all about. But it was a 17-storey building in Collins Street, Melbourne, and of course I nearly filled my pants at the time.
Yeah.
Wow, how am I going to do this?
Yeah.
But one of the things you must, I think, remember about civil engineering, it prepares you for the art of making decisions even though you might never have experienced it before, the actual training you have is quite amazing. When I moved into there, I was doing things I'd never ever seen or heard of, because at that stage I still wasn't qualified.
Yeah, gotcha.
And interestingly enough, the Shire engineer, when I went and told him that I was leaving Keilor, actually said to me, I'll make you a grade 2 engineer tomorrow. I want you to stay.
Yep.
And I came back next day. I said, I'll think about it. Came back next day and said, no, I'm moving on. He said, I thought you'd say that. Anyway, there again, it's a failure. If he'd offered me more money before I was going to leave, I might still have stayed with them.
Yep. So did you feel like you weren't appreciated?
Probably not. I think I couldn't say that because the people that I worked with, the other engineers, really appreciated my background and the help I gave them. Because, I know I had a couple of Asian students who were quite brilliant. When they left and went back home after their experience with me, they wanted me to come to their country a few times. We were supposed to, in fact, we did go to one wedding, which was an amazing experience.
Where was that?
In Melbourne.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I think it was something like a great experience in that a totally different ceremony, of course. But when we got to the reception, I think there was 15 main meals.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
How many did you get through?
I think I got through 5 or 6. The amazing thing was these little fellas sitting all around me, they're only half my size. I ate the whole lot, the whole 15. But it was incredible. But they did want us to come and visit them in their country, which, of course, we never ever got around to.
Right. And what country was that?
That was, I think, Thailand, Indonesia, those closer areas. A lot of them coming through. Very, very brilliant in brain power, but quite lacking in the practical approach or practical application of what they'd learned, which I think they'd get around that eventually. But,
and is that because they went to uni and didn't get the practical experience and they come out and just...
Actually, spot on, Jack. I think in the long run, one of the things that I see in the modern engineer anyway is that more so, but it should have been in when I was young too, that I'd like to see all graduates, particularly in civil engineering, get out, tender on a job. There's plenty of small jobs around. Tender on a job. Run that job. See if he can make a profit. And if it's $20,000 or something and he doesn't quite make a profit, well, there's not much damage done. But if he has to control the men, control the costing and all that type of thing, as well as tendering on it, and see how good he is. I believe if he had to do that before he got his diploma and or his... whatever degree, I'm quite sure he would be twice the engineer the day he started.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. And that's sort of what you did though, isn't it? So you went and got the practical experience and then you came back and then you got the degree. But I'm interested if that degree actually contributed from that point on to your actual ability in the field.
I would say probably not.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
The civil engineering being what it is, it's about design. Well, once you've got the design principles, once you can do a decent design, I think then the construction side of it, because I was involved in construction as well, and you can't get better teaching than actually doing it on the job. And so when I got to the Royal Melbourne Tech, I was learning about drainage design, for instance. I already knew everything about it.
Right,
The only one I had to catch up on probably through all those years was structural.
Okay.
I hadn't done much of structural design.
Yep.
So in general, I'd say, no, the practical experience was probably far better than any degree or diploma in my case.
Right.
Interestingly enough, that through all my life, some of the best foreman type guys who were running jobs with me never had any qualification at all.
Right. Yeah.
But they could run a job very, very efficiently.
Right. Yep.
And that's all practical experience. So I'm not too sure exactly how. You must have these degrees, particularly if you go for a government job. My diploma would not be looked at if there was a degree man in front of me.
Yeah.
And that's how it works.
Yeah. That's sad, though, isn't it?
It is sad. It is sad that it's probably many times the right man, the best man, never got the job. Best man or woman.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So then you talked about, it's interesting the way you put it, the art of decision making. So these people, these graduates who come out of uni, you're saying their decision making capabilities were poor or non-existent, basically?
Yes, for the simple reason, you think about it, they go through university, they don't have to make a decision.
Yeah.
They've got to make decisions about the answers they're giving and the work they're doing and the work they're putting in for marking. But that's not the same as under pressure, out on the job, and something goes wrong, make a decision and get on with it. And I suppose the best thing you can have in life is make some decisions that are wrong. Because I can tell you, Jack, you'll never ever make that mistake ever again in your life. Never. And that's a very good learning curve. I may at that stage talk about, say, the modern engineer as I see him now. That is far worse now, Jack.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
The modern engineer that I have to deal with now finds it very hard to make a decision, and they appear to have been brought up with this fear of litigation.
Right, okay.
I think that's probably the saddest thing that's happened to my profession.
Right.
And I would love to somehow see that overcome, that we've got men coming out of university, and I'd like to have that little bit of practical experience put in there but get back, if I may put it, get back the balls to make the decision and get the job done. And I think we're seeing that throughout so many spheres in Australia. Anyway, we moved on, I suppose. It's okay to talk about a little bit in the city.
Yeah,
this was quite amazing. I used to get there at probably 6:30 every morning, and we did some concrete pours that went till probably midday or something like that, which is quite incredible. But I had to deal with some funny, or I suppose it's rather serious, but some union people in those days, which was the Builders Labourers Federation. Eventually it got black-banned and thrown out by the Victorian government. I think they got black-banned totally.
What do you mean? I didn't know what black-banned means.
Deregistered.
Okay. Yep.
Totally deregistered.
Okay.
So that's how bad they were. And they'd come under my job and totally ignore me. If I said, what can I do for you?
Yeah.
Who are you, you know?
Yeah.
That's the attitude.
Right.
I know Tom.
Okay.
I want to see Tom. And Tom was the foreman on the job.
Okay.
And I didn't like that.
Yeah.
And I said to the construction boss at the time, is it all right if I whack one of these guys and he falls down the stairs?
Yeah.
And he said, no, don't ever do that. The job will be black band.
Yeah.
We won't get a thing
Yeah.
done for a fortnight.
Okay.
And
Oh, so you're saying black band? Is that what you're saying?
when I say black band, that's
Oh,
from
okay.
the union point of view.
Right. Okay.
Sorry, yeah.
I thought you said black man. That's why I was black band. Okay.
Black band. They black the site.
Okay, gotcha. Right.
And what happens is, if they get nasty with you, you can be halfway through a concrete pour. Say we pour the slab, which is, in this case, it was a structural steel and concrete building, and you put up the huge concrete columns and beams, and then you start pouring the slabs across that join the beams up. And you can get halfway through that job for a day, and if they get nasty,
Yep.
they call them in off the job.
Right. Okay.
So what happens is that concrete goes off.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have to, when your men come back to work, they have to get in there with jackhammers, jackhammer the whole lot out,
Yeah.
relay the steel work,
Right.
and at huge cost. You can imagine how much money they can cost you.
Mm-hmm.
And they were doing that.
Right.
And I think in the long run, that's half the reason why they were deregistered.
Yep.
But they were tough times, Jack, to deal with those people.
Yeah. And so did they do that to you? Did they come and cut you
No.
off? They didn't do it to you.
No, I kept my temper.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I was
Okay.
kept even tempered.
Yeah.
They did some things. I guess at one time or another, there was probably 50 men working on that job.
Yep.
They still come in and call a strike
Right.
over the minor things.
Yep.
And the men and I got on very, very well. And I would ask them, interestingly enough, why did you vote to go on strike?
Yep.
And most of them were foreign, didn't speak so much English, but
Yep.
I could converse with them.
Yep.
But they would say time and time again, sorry, boss, when that man says, I, put your hand up,
Yep.
always put hand up.
Right. Okay.
They otherwise just threaten my family.
Right.
Stand over.
Wow. So what's the agenda of these people, of these unions, do you think? Or what was it at the time?
Well, am I allowed to say there's corruption involved?
Yeah, say whatever you like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I guess some builders in those years paid.
Mm-hmm. Okay, gotcha.
Keep them off the job.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was interesting, but terrible. I believe that there's little bits of that going on now. If you read the stories about construction
Yep.
in Melbourne, there's another union that's giving them a lot of trouble.
Yep.
I won't mention who it is.
No worries. Yep.
Anyway, we got well through that job, but I'd done all my structural work, and at that stage was a little bit of concrete still to be poured. And then we got into the architectural side where you're putting in the cladding on the outside of the building. And I was approached by a company who was working on development right throughout the north and the west of the city, whether I'd work for them. Mm-hmm. And they made me an offer that I couldn't refuse. And I'm a bit sorry to this day that my good friend who got me going in the first place, I left him behind, but he got through it all right, and we're still friends.
Right. That's good. Yeah.
And so I moved out into the development, and a good part of it, Jack, there was no unions.
Right. Okay. Wow. There you
Hassle
go.
me.
Yeah.
But that was fairly tough work. But probably when you move into an area like that, this was a rather young company. And one of the first things I had when I got there, as I remember, they had no bookwork done. You know, it's very, very important if you've got a job and you've tendered on the job. You've worked out your costs on every item. So at the end of each day, you should have all your costs, that's the labour cost and everything, put down on paper so that your admin people can tell you at the end of the second day exactly how you went on the first day. And that was something that I brought in there, and they did it very well. Sometimes we got into fights with the owners because we weren't going too well.
Right, yeah.
But that's what it was all about.
Yeah.
One of the biggest mistakes companies make is that they don't watch the cents and the dollars and everything that's being wasted right in front of their eyes. And there's no better way than having a book system which shows you exactly every day how you're going. So that was good. But I think I was there for about 15 years, Jack, and probably 4 years into that, or 3 years into that period, I became qualified, and I got my little bit of paper. Had to go to a graduation ceremony in the RMIT, and that was a proud day for me, I guess. At the end of a lot of hard work. But
was it expensive to go to uni then, or to go to college? No, it wasn't. Okay.
No. The books were the biggest trouble.
Okay.
The civil engineering handbooks are, back in those days, I think you could pay £25-30 for a book, which in modern language would probably be $200 or more.
Wow. Okay.
But, and you got to remember, I think I mentioned my wage when I first started, but when I went to Melbourne, my wage was about £20 per week.
Right.
So that's £1,000 per year. So
1.5 weeks to buy a book, basically, if you spent all the money on that.
That's right.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, if you look at as a sideline, the first car I bought was £1,000.
Right.
So it took a full year's wages to buy just a normal Holden utility.
Wow.
What a difference that is today.
Yeah.
It's nothing like that. You know? But so that was just a bit of a side issue.
But I'm interested. You talk like if you were not qualified, but if you were had the skills to be an engineer, and then you had to go to uni and pay all this money and do all this work to tick a few boxes, basically. I'm wondering if you were annoyed that you had to go do all that stuff because you already had the skills by the sounds.
Absolutely, Jake. But probably annoyance never came into it.
Okay.
I think just accepted. I think you were more worried that you weren't qualified, that everybody around you're talking to is qualified. Now, what does it mean? Perhaps I can talk on an even keel, not that it ever stopped me talking to any engineer on an even keel, but maybe you had some pride that you had a bit of paper. In those days, I think qualification did mean a lot. And probably being brought up in a very conservative family, it still was ingrained into you that you needed qualification. You needed this good job.
Right, yeah.
So maybe that was... But I can't remember ever feeling annoyed about having to do it.
But you sort of sound like you felt a little bit inferior on the site at times, perhaps. But to these people who are coming to you for advice, is this also the strange paradox there? Yes.
Yeah. I wonder in the long run whether I had some sneaking pride about the mere fact that these highly qualified people were coming to me for advice. So perhaps that's the way I got over it, Jack. I don't know.
Yeah. I just find it so strange that we put higher university education on this pedestal, but we look at the and I bang on about this all the time on the podcast, but then we look at the actual practical experience in the field, and it doesn't always align.
I find that so right, more so today than ever, I think. That there's many things about civil engineering that is just straight out common sense, Jack. Total common sense. And I'm finding today that you can have the whole range from your politicians down to your public servants to down to your senior engineers in Vic Roads, I think it is now, and these people don't appear to have any idea of just common sense. Get the practical work done instead of fiddling around, arguing and fighting and wasting money and getting more advice from consultants, which really annoys hell out of me.
Right.
I think the money we waste in Australia today on consultants is absolute rubbish. We pay public servants. What the hell are they there for? You know. Anyway, that's digressing a bit, I suppose, Jack.
That's okay.
But anyway, in the long run, I guess that the big thing about getting out into this other field of development was totally different again, and getting through each day out in the field at times became very, very difficult, particularly with rain and the weather. It really made my job quite hard. Probably the lowest period of my engineering life was around the early 70s, and we'd had a recession.
Right.
And jobs were very, very hard to come by. We were tendering on, I think at the end we were tendering on about 2% profit margin.
Wow. Okay.
And in actual fact, you were only getting jobs to keep you're leasing machinery, you were paying men, you had all those expenses of insurance and all that sort of thing.
Yep.
You're probably getting a job just to make sure you could pay your expenses.
Yep.
And
Okay.
there was no profit in that.
Yep.
And it was a pity in a way, because my understanding with the people I was working for then was that they paid a bonus at the end of the year, which in some years was terrific. You know, it was a great boost to Roniston himself.
Yep.
But through that period, I think I was getting up to about 80 hours a week.
Right.
Because I was doing the tendering as well as trying to run the jobs. And it became very, very hard and very, very stressful. And I think in the long run, I may have mentioned this, that after several years of that, I did go to a doctor and spoke to him about this, and he was trying to do an ECG, and he couldn't get it to work because apparently my body was just under total stress, and the machine mustn't work. I've got no idea about that.
Yeah, like 2 tenths almost.
Yeah, 2 tenths.
Right.
And he was trying to make me relax. And his advice was then, well, I know what's wrong with it, and I'm not going to give you anything for it, and there are certainly no pills involved, but I'll guarantee you that you're going to be dead at 55.
Wow. And
And
what age were you at the time?
I would have been, I suppose, in my early 40s, I guess, at that stage. Yeah.
Yep.
And that was a kick in the pants for me, and it ended up that within a year or so, I decided, well, I think we'll go for greener pastures, and I headed out into the country again and got an engineer's job again with a small shire up in the northeast.
Right. Okay.
And that's how that all turned out. Practically, that's my life in a nutshell.
Right. I'm really interested about the stress, because this is, it's still a common problem in the present day. Did you know you were stressed, or did you think you were stressed before you went to the doctor?
No, absolutely not. And you probably, I think, if I can pass on anything to all people, it doesn't matter what they're working at, we've got to learn to recognise stress.
Yep.
Recognise it for what it is and the problems it can cause, and control stress. One of my biggest problems, Jack, was that through that period I was qualifying, I never had a holiday.
Okay.
I took holidays before exams.
Yep.
It was the only time I could sit down at home and get ready
to study, was it?
To study and get ready for the end year exams at the RMIT. So without realising it, there's a build-up there.
Yep.
And I could only wish that perhaps we'd spent those weeks and away on holidays, maybe the result would have been different.
Yep.
But I do impress on everybody, hopefully they'll listen, that stress and the recognition of stress is probably even more important today than it was then. So certainly you must consider it for yourself and for your own good and for your family's good. I think that's fair.
And so what was you're told by the doctor you might live for another 10 to 12 years.
Yeah.
What was your reaction to that once you got home and could internalise, I suppose, what you'd been told?
I think the discussion, I mean, I would have come home and discussed it and would have thought, well, this is not the way to go. And it's quite a kick in the backside, really, Jack, that, we all think we're a bit bulletproof. I don't think there's anybody who doesn't, but it wouldn't hurt a lot of people to get a little kick like that on the way.
Right.
And I think it taught me a lot about myself. It taught me to look at life differently. I was always able to laugh, but I became far better at it.
Okay.
And able to laugh much more at myself.
Right, okay.
And so I think that's most important. And for longevity, it is very, very important that you don't take yourself too seriously and learn to laugh at yourself a bit. That's a good bit of advice.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was one of those things that didn't hurt me, Jack.
Right. Okay. I think that's really good to know, because I still know a lot of people who are quite stressed. I certainly stress myself from time to time. But yeah, I hear your voice echoing my head to chill out and not take things too seriously. Was anyone else stressed at the time around you? Was there your colleagues? Like, was this a common thing? Because you did say you went through a recession, or mini recession at least.
Not really. We could help a little bit at that stage. My best friend was an engineer also, who I had worked with, but he was in a totally different sphere at that stage. Really, we were living in a bubble, Jack. That 70 or 80 hours of work a week, and not much time for yourself. Not much time to get around and talk to people, which was bad, I think. But you're living for work and you're sleeping short hours, about 6 hours a night, and every week went so quickly.
Right.
I don't think you had much time to think or go and talk to somebody about it.
Right.
That I can remember.
Wow.
And the whole thing's happening to you without you realising it. Yeah, it's quite interesting. I'd never thought of that, Jack.
All right, because I'm hearing you tell the story, and I'm also thinking these hours aren't just working hours. These hours are strenuous mental labour. Like you're designing big. Because some work can be brain dead, right? You can do some brain dead work, but it sounds like not only were you doing long hours, but you were doing. It was a lot. It was tough on your head, on your brain.
Absolutely, and many nights, the mere sound of rain, you would wake up and not go back to sleep.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
Knowing damn well, because you could see the job with getting messed up. And,
so you didn't turn it off at all during this time by the sound?
I think that's a pretty fair comment.
Right.
One of the best things we probably had done is that we bought an old shack up in Mulwala, and that was we were getting away at Christmas then. We closed the business down for 2 or 3 weeks over Christmas, and I reckon that did a lot to help me, never realising what worth there was there. But I do remember, and my family would back me up here, that sometimes I would get there and it'd be probably 5 days, a week maybe, before I could really settle down and enjoy myself.
Gotcha.
At that stage, your body must have been running on adrenaline. I don't know what was wrong. But,
wow.
But But that's incredible that, I did at least get away for those 2 or 3 weeks every Christmas from then on.
Okay.
Yeah, so who knows? Might have added a few years to my life.
Yeah. Good job. Well, I the other reason I wanted to get you on the podcast in particular, because I know you've done a lot of hiring and firing in your time.
Yes.
Can you tell us about maybe a story about a particularly hard time where you had to fire, a lot of people? I'm assuming you had to during these recessions, or
Yes, well, it's probably it was quite different then, Jack. And in modern terms, there are very, very strict regulations as how you can fire somebody.
Yep.
It's not easy to fire somebody.
Yep.
Those days, I could fire somebody on the spot and just tell them, go to the office and pick up your money.
Gotcha.
And then I'd get on the radio and radio the office. And this bloke's coming in,
Yep.
make up his money and make sure he's paid up and he's finished.
Did you have to do that often in your career? Just the on the spot?
Yes, Jack, it was, and that's not easy to do.
Yeah.
With people, because I had a lot of people work for me over many, many years, and I must say, just about all of them were very, very loyal to me.
Yep.
But at times you could not take a mistake, particularly out on construction jobs.
Right.
And because the lives of men out there
Yeah.
are at risk.
Yeah.
And if somebody's careless, I could lose a man,
Yeah.
and then you're in real
Yeah.
trouble
Yep.
with all the government departments who then get involved.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody was careless, better that he goes on the spot. I don't want him to even drive the machine or the truck again.
Right.
Get in your car, or I'd take him back. But the end result, even though it was hard at the time, the end result was maybe we might have saved a life, Jack. And you've got to think that way. Be tough with it.
Yep.
The other thing that I do remember is that after firing some people, not many, but they came back to me and with family problems and that sort of thing, and I was soft enough to actually put them back on.
Right.
And I'd advise anybody not to do that because I'd say, without doubt, they let me down again.
Right.
Every one of them.
100% of them.
100%,
That's incredible.
Yeah. And I don't. So obviously, in the first place, I was correct.
Yep.
But it's one of those things. I over those years, I think you'd end up learning to actually pick men, and I think I can still do it. I only have to talk to them for a while, and I generally can classify them in certain little drawers.
Right, gotcha.
And I'm generally not too bad on that. I'm still not too bad on which is very, very handy to have that skill.
Yep. And so you're saying you can pick whether you think someone will be useful to the project or not.
Yeah.
What do you look for, and what do you hope? What traits do you hope they don't have?
I think in the long run, there's a lot to do with the way they talk. There's body language involved, their previous experience, and their attitude to the work they've done before. Quite clearly comes out if you talk to them and listen to the certain things. You can pick that up. But if they're disrespectful of the people they work for,
Right.
disrespectful of the job they used to have,
Right.
I think in the long run they're no good for me.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and that's a good way to go, mate.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I probably was wrong sometimes, Jack. I accept that.
Right.
And some people might have got hurt, but
Yep.
that's private enterprise.
Mm-hmm. Would it still have been, the right thing for them to do when they talk to you, to not slag off, even if something bad happened? Would you think it's still not appropriate to slag off the previous employer or job?
I think so.
Yep.
It's I've heard somebody else talk about this, but and that is that people tend to blame somebody else for their own mistakes,
Right.
and
Yep.
their own shortcomings.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's. I don't think you should do that. No.
Right. Okay, and that's because there's a lot of I hear a lot about people saying these days that they hire for attitude over talent or skill. Would it be fair to say that that's what you did?
Yes, I suppose I did.
Yeah.
We were a little bit more fortunate at the lower end of the scale. And I shouldn't say the lower end, but when I was able to look for, we're short of labourers, for instance, and that was pretty tough work. A lot of shovel and pick work and some pretty boring stuff to be done out on those development sites. We were able to go to the government department, which handed out unemployment benefits, I think it's called in those days, Jack.
Right.
And suggest that they had them on their books. And I think in those days, you must go for a job. And you must try and find suitable work.
Yep.
Otherwise, you're off.
Yep.
You're out.
Yep. So they're also like a job agency kind of, are they?
I think so, but it was government. And we were able to say, could you send 5 or 6 of them out and tell them this is all manual labour?
Yep.
It was strange. I don't know what their attitude was in many, many cases, but generally at least a third of them had walked off the job in the first 2 hours.
Wow.
Just
like
threw down the shovel. And
off
gone.
their own accord.
On their own accord, yeah.
Wow.
And if we had 8 or 10 and we got 1 or 2 out of it, we reckon we did very well.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So the other, at least another half of what was left would be gone by lunchtime on our prerogative.
Okay.
So you're not good enough, mate.
Yeah.
You can tell. You don't just stand and watch them working. Yeah. 2 shovelfuls once and then a 5-minute break is not good enough.
Yeah, gotcha. Yep. I can hear you. Yep.
I shouldn't laugh.
No, good. So I also then, talking about government, you've spent some time dealing with government by the sounds and also a lot in private enterprise. What do you think's what was the big difference between those two sectors for you?
Well, mine was local government, which is councils, and still practically the same as a full government job, I guess. But there was a certain relaxation, definitely, around in government jobs or in local government jobs that you didn't have. A good example, for instance, say preparing a street scheme, which is we're going to construct the streets all through a certain suburb, and the people have to pay for it. So I prepare the costs, the plans, and then cost them all out. In the final estimate, from memory, we're allowed to add 12.5% on the cost for contingency items.
Oh, right, okay.
So, and I think that was allowable under the Local Government Act at the time. But interestingly enough, there's a vast difference.
Okay.
So there wasn't much pressure on me to be perfect.
Right, gotcha. Was there any contingency in private when you?
No.
No, none. Okay, right.
No. Unless a consultant engineer or a council or a government body asked for them and put them on your schedule. Yeah, that did happen at times. Okay. But that contingency in that case would have been quoted for you. You allow $20,000 at the end of your job, end of your pricing for it, and so forth. But therein lies the difference in extra the pressure. In preparing a tender is very, very much different to working for the government and doing the same thing. Today, I just am totally appalled that a government's allowed to get away with a thing like the desal plan in Victoria. How possibly can they tell the public it's going to cost $3 billion and it costs $24 billion?
Yeah, wow.
Now,
that's a big contingency.
Absolutely. What's that, about 600% or something? But the point about it is that if it was private enterprise, every politician, every public servant, and every consultant who was employed on that job would have been sacked. And why aren't they under the same provisions that I would have been? You got to remember, if I made a mistake, it costs your company that you're working for many, many thousands of dollars. And you can't afford that when you've got small margins.
Mm-hmm.
How can people using public money get away with that? And unless we straighten all that out, I think I shouldn't say it, but we're half doomed anyway.
But what has that got worse? Have you observed that that's got worse over time, or is that something that's always been around?
No, absolutely, it's got so much worse.
Oh, really?
Absolutely,
okay.
yes. It's in my opinion, they get away with murder, and there's no comeback. Why? That's our money, Jack, and not theirs. And there should be a comeback of some sort. If I make a mistake, we often used to, when I was young, we'd compare ourselves with the doctors. If we made a mistake and somebody died, we go to jail. If they make a mistake, they just bury them.
Right, wow.
that was a bad comparison.
Sounds very morbid, yeah. Yeah. So what do you think, what in your opinion has led to that? I suppose it almost sounds like a lack of care over time.
Absolutely. There doesn't seem to be care. And probably worse than that is a lack of what we call common sense. Now, when we were young, common sense was a word or two words.
Yeah.
Is it one word?
A phrase.
But anyway, it was used so often by our parents.
Okay.
And I could wish that all politicians and the country could get back and be run on purely common sense. And to me, that would change all this rubbish. And common sense prevails, or should prevail, at every instance, and we wouldn't be making these huge mistakes. But nobody cares. I think the people do care in Australia. I think there's a lot of people care, but we don't seem to have the ways or means to say, you're gone.
Yeah.
There's public servants there sitting, earning very, very big money.
Yep.
Probably twice as much as I ever earned.
Yep.
But they could have a disaster like that, wouldn't even know their name. And they should have been sacked on the spot, the whole lot of them.
Do you have a theory on what's led to this?
Probably a bit hard to put your finger on one particular thing. I think it appears to have developed over many years that it's very, very. It's a long time since I've seen, for instance, politicians who are there to serve the people rather than serve their own ends, and think only of one thing, and that's getting elected again. Where's the people who are thinking about us and the country and what's going to be there in 5 years, 10 years, or 20 years? You know, that to me, I'm very passionate about.
That goes beyond the 3-year term, though, probably.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
you get a decent one, he'll probably last 20 years.
Yeah,
and that's what I believe in. But he would certainly have to change it. So it's a lack of care.
Yeah.
They seem to be able to stand in front of a microphone and show no worry, no care, no compunction about what's happened. And to me, that is very, very sad.
So you're saying you saw politicians in your lifetime that you think did care and did have that long-term vision? I
think there were statesmen then.
Okay.
Jack. There were certain statesmen through my life, and I think... you'll often hear a Labor man called John Curtins.
Okay.
Curtin is often talked about. Bob Menzies is often talked about. But they were statesmen. Certainly, they still made mistakes.
Yep.
But I think the difference was that they are trying their best to serve the people and still be a politician as well.
Right.
But I don't think a modern politician can serve the people and be a politician in the modern terms.
Wow.
Because he seems to have to tell lies and beat around the bush.
Yeah.
In fact, I know a politician who told me they actually go to school and they learn how to talk.
Really? Yeah.
When they get into power.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's concerning. It sounds like they're putting as much effort, or if not more, into the front than they are actually into the delivering solutions.
I might be totally wrong, but I did read, and if you can believe the media, but I did read there's one state premier who's got over 100 people who do nothing else but work on the media side for him. Now, that is disgusting. And that's the front. We've got to have the front.
Because that's taxpayer dollars to stay in power and control your image.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So it sounds like a bit of a vicious cycle, that one.
It is.
Yeah.
I don't know how we're going to turn it around, but it's probably a bit of the media at fault there, Jack.
Yeah.
Media don't ask the right questions most of the time.
Right. And has that been something has that deteriorated as well, in your opinion, or is that...
Yes, absolutely. We had on media over the years some great interviewers who really used to put politicians of any ilk, including prime ministers, on the line in an interview and ask some very, very tough questions and insist on them being answered. I think the difference now is that a politician can talk for 5 minutes and not say one thing, which is amazing to me. That's sad too, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think I have seen a few interviewers of late who do try and ask those hard questions. I think they're still out there. But, I would say that from my perspective, the politician can not always, but they often can get away with not answering the question, put it that way.
Yes, I think, and I know one Prime Minister in the 90s who wouldn't go on an interview on television unless he was given all the questions beforehand.
Yeah.
Yeah. Come on. And if the media put up with that, they're just as bad.
Yeah.
And that's my opinion.
Wow. So what do we do about all this stuff, Bob?
Well, I've thought long and hard. I don't know. Perhaps the people need to answer. Perhaps we may have seen it in America, where the people at last have said, "I've had enough," and nobody ever thought that Donald Trump would be in today.
Yeah.
Maybe Australia will do the same thing. And if the politicians out here today don't recognise what happened in America, they might be in for a kick in the seat of the pants in the long run. Whether it's now or 5 years or 10 years, I don't know. But they can't go on just treating people like fools. And I believe that's what they do.
Right.
That's what I feel like. I feel as though you just think I'm an idiot. You don't care anyway what I think. And one of the worst things I think with the modern politician, and I guess it might be very hard for them, and I would be hard on them for saying it, but I do wish sometimes they would come down and talk to the people in the street in some form. There should be a forum somewhere that just talk to the normal people. And I don't mean rabble-rousers or anything else. They don't have to put up with that. But it'd be nice to have a forum where it's all nice and gentle, but listen to the concerned farmer or the concerned labourer or whatever, and the concerned nurse and the concerned ambulance man, that sort of thing.
That might be harder too then, just to you'd have those people in your mind when you go to make your decisions and make your policies, It might be harder to be so careless.
I think so, and I think you'd get a feel of what's out there in the public. In the present time, from my knowledge of all that I hear around me, is that politicians have no feel for what we think. And I think we are the silent majority. They tend to listen to the minority. These people who make a loud noise. Still, the good old saying is, an empty drum makes the loudest noise.
That's a good one. I haven't heard that one before. All right. So I want to move on to... You've had how long was your career actually? Before I ask. What was I? About 40 years, I guess. Yep. In civil engineering, I reckon that wouldn't be far away. Yep. But I was in the situation.
I really only retired because of an amalgamation that came up of councils and happened in the northeast as it did in most places. I wasn't happy with the process, and I thought, well, I could move on. And I was in a situation where I was able to get a lot of work anyway and help other people out in the construction industry and other types of things around the area. And so I was happy to do that and run my own self-managed superannuation fund.
Right.
So that was a good time anyway. But
Yep.
with that came relaxation, Jack.
It sounds like you needed it.
Yeah, well, that's right.
Yeah.
And hopefully longevity.
All right. So, do you have some maybe timeless principles you can share with us that you learned over your career?
Yeah, well, I think stress was one of the main ones. There's definitely, I think, humility with your workers is a very, very strong point. It doesn't matter what position you hold in a company. It should apply to governments as well as government job as well as the private enterprise structure. I think, in my experience, having humility, you ended up with a lot of workers, or most workers, and a very vast majority of workers being very, very loyal to you. And they would do anything for you. They respected you. And you've got to earn that respect. And there's nothing better than having a boss you really respect. And I think if I could pass that on, that does come through a little bit of humility. At times you've got to be tough, but that humility means so much to your working people underneath you.
Right. And what do you? How would that look on a day-to-day basis? Like, is that just being open about your mistakes, perhaps, or is it just being respectful?
Oh, absolutely. I think I feel it was that I could talk to anybody, a labourer, a machine operator, anybody, and make him feel as though I'm no better than him, that he was equal to me.
Gotcha.
And I would ask him whenever I could, what do you think about what I'm doing? What do you think? And I want you to tell me honestly. What do you think? We've got a bit of a problem here. What would you do? You know, and it's probably one of the other principles is that I don't care how many years you've been doing it. You can never, ever stop learning from the people, even those who work for you.
Yep.
And I think it's very, very important that if you remember that, there's nobody knows everything. And there's an odd bloke who's been a labourer all his life. He would know a little bit better about some things than you do because he's down at the work face. He's at the coal face, as we say. So that's a good one. I think.
Did you have to learn to do that, or with the humility part? Did you have to learn that, or is that who you were?
No, absolutely had to learn it.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yes.
So did you get stung by not being like that, perhaps?
Yes, okay. I was accused through my life of being a bit snobbish.
Okay.
And one of the things is it's probably very, very hard to learn and get good at is communication. And I was certainly at fault early on. I would give 4 or 5 men some instruction.
Yep.
Thinking it's as clear as I could make it.
Yeah.
But to them it wasn't.
Okay.
And you've got to remember your brain is seeing it from your experience, and you've seen it a dozen times before. This might be something a man or these particular gang of men have never done before. And that was most important. And I was certainly at fault over many years on that I thought that I'd given the instructions clearly.
Right.
And obviously a couple of days later I hadn't. And for a while there I was blaming the men a bit. So yes, I would have had a problem over my life. Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Right.
So that's an interesting one.
And then that sort of shocked you into, or not shock, but it forced you to go, I've got to
Yes.
listen to people more.
That's right.
Is that right? Okay.
And make sure when you give an order or give instructions, do you understand? Take it a bit further. So what did you make of the job you're about to do? And look, that probably took me a long time, to be honest, Jack. That number one, it's time. You bark out. You've got a lot on your mind. You bark out something to be done, and obviously you weren't good enough. And you got to remember that's where the humility comes in. And say, look, sorry fellas, that's my mistake. You didn't quite understand what I wanted.
Yep.
But a lot of people just go off the deep end, and the problem's not theirs. It's somebody else to blame again.
Gotcha. Yep.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yep. And so then you talked about it's always important to keep learning.
That's right. Yeah, that's what I mean. And when the ability to pick up things from the people you work with, you should be like a sponge and be able to suck it all in, because in amongst, there might be a lot of rubbish there, but in amongst the rubbish there's some pearls of wisdom.
Yeah.
There really is.
And it's free.
Yeah, it's free. and absolutely, Jack. And that's great, because I think I would have learned a lot. And probably if I go over my whole career, I should have learned a lot more.
Oh, really?
By not picking people's brains. And so maybe the people told me I was a bit of a snob weren't wrong. Who knows? But no, that's a good one, Jack.
Right. And I imagine you would have had to do a ton of delegation in your time.
Well, that's delegation was probably one of my weak points earlier on again.
Right.
And particularly when I got out in the development field, there'd be a huge job going on, and you've got drainage, concrete works, excavation, everything going on all at once. You might have 2 or 3 jobs going. But for a while there, particularly when you got, I think when I got under stress, that I didn't realise it, but I was trying to hold my finger on the pulse of everything that was going on.
Right.
And that definitely contributes to your own stress in the long run, and exactly, would have caused a lot of stress to me that it shouldn't have happened.
Yep. Yeah. Would it be fair to say you're also compromising the quality of your work too?
Absolutely. That's one thing you got to remember, that when you get stressed, your efficiency really drops off, and you're no good to the job, and you're no good to yourself if you let stress become such a bugbear. And so stress again comes up, and it contributes in a lot of ways. But I would have been delegating responsibility far earlier in my life if I'd had that experience.
Yep.
And what can I do? I'll be the same as anyone else. You learn by experience, and you learn by mistakes. But that certainly was one of mine for a while, anyway.
That might be genetic, because I certainly aren't the most skilled delegator, and I'm certainly not out of the woods with that yet.
Yeah. Well, be careful, Jack, because you tend. Put it this way, you tend not to trust somebody.
Yeah.
With that chore.
Yeah.
And if you don't trust them, what use are they for you? What good are they for you?
Yeah.
And so it goes on. So no, the delegation is very, very important, I think.
So to get better at that, did you just have to trust people more? Was it that simple?
Yes, I think so.
Oh, right.
Learn to trust people more, and as I said, the older I got, the better I got at it. I wish I knew more about that when I was 25 or 30.
Okay.
And that's why if I could pass that on to young engineers, I certainly would. Would be one of the main things I tell them. It's so right.
Yeah, I can imagine that's relevant across a lot of disciplines.
Right.
Though, I mean, I'm no engineer, but I certainly need to delegate, and it's hard to do at times.
That's right.
Because you think that they're not going to do as good a job as you, or they're going to.
Absolutely spot on. And
They might do it better, though.
They may do it better. That's right, and it's a strange quirk of what it is, human people, I suppose. But I think that is most important for young people. That delegation that is a big point, and we can't stress it enough, Jack. I really can't.
Brilliant. Anything else for us?
Oh, I think just to finish off, I would point out that I was lucky enough to work with a lot of very, very skillful and very smart people. Now, you've got to remember that some of these people who own companies, some of these people, they're not even engineers.
Right.
Some of them haven't got past 4th grade in the old days.
Yeah, right.
You're allowed to leave at 14 or 15, I think,
Yep.
School. And I learnt more off them in the early years. And one of their main sayings was to me, and I learnt all that, I think was on the structural job in Collins Street, Melbourne, was I want you at the end of the day, and certainly at the end of the week, is to reflect on everything you did, and you must ask yourself, could I have done better? And also, is there a better way to do it? And Jack, they are the best words of wisdom that I've ever heard, and I certainly lived by them as much as I could.
So, and then you used to write that down each week, did you? And then would you?
No, I think sit down.
Oh, okay.
And think about what you did today.
Yep.
Best at the end of the day, and think, particularly as in engineering, civil engineering, there is always a better way.
Yeah.
And they were pointing out, if you let it go, there'll be somebody smarter than you, and do it in a cheaper and better way, and you won't get a job.
Right.
Your company, you'll be beaten on the tendering front. So. I did that for most of my life after that, and the best bit of advice I've ever had, Jack. And
really?
Certainly, if you can, pass it on to your kids.
Yeah, okay. when I have them. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking about that now. If you extrapolated that out a year, I mean, someone's going to have looked at themselves 5 times a week versus someone who's not doing that. I mean, that's a big difference.
Absolutely. And the end result will be a big difference. I can tell you now. The end result will be incredible.
Right. Yeah.
So very good bit of advice, Jack.
Awesome. All right, Pop, that was absolutely fantastic. Thanks for being with us and sharing the experiences you've had over your career. I think our listeners will get a lot out of that. So much appreciated for being here.
Thank you very much, Jack. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Be The Push podcast. Show notes can be found at bethepush.com/podcast and clicking on the relevant episode link. I appreciate your company and look forward to talking to you again soon.